Let's move on to Abigail Melville, who knows an awful lot about cooperative councils because she's an associate of the Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts, Manufacturers and Commerce, the RSA, which has been going on since, is that right, Abigail, 1750? So it is very much a thought leader of the 18th century, which has its 21st century iteration. And she is very active at the moment in the Co-operative Councils Innovation Network. So she knows her stuff. Carry on. Thank you.
I'm here really on behalf of the Co-operative Councils Innovation Network. Milton Keynes Council joined that network last year. We have 23 councils who are seeking to innovate. And I'm here to really talk a bit about what a cooperative council is. And I've got my 15 minutes. I'm going to use the first 3 minutes of it to show you a short film, which I hope you'll find helpful just in terms of kind of setting the scene. So the film, please.
How do we make the places where we live and work better? Everyone's always talking about it. Maybe it's big social problems. Maybe it's smaller things. Maybe it's things that are harder to put your finger on. What causes some people to work 3 jobs and yet still struggle to get by? Maybe it's things that seem like they should be easy to fix, like neighbours who don't know each other, but which never seem to get solved. You often hear it's about getting on and doing things yourself. But you probably know people who are doing exactly that, and it's clear they need help from somewhere to succeed. And the people with problems, well, they usually look like they're trying pretty hard. Other people will tell you it's all about the government fixing things, but it often feels like there's some disconnect. With the best will in the world, a minister is never going to know about the particular challenges of every town. People who live there do. If only they had some kind of local government that was just for the place they lived. It could start from there, but it can't be about replicating the good and bad of central government just closer to home. It would be more cooperative. We could call it a cooperative council, and it would use the power of the network. Networking people together to help solve problems so they get fixed faster and more can be done. And networking together too, sharing ideas and strategies. So instead of one centralised system spending time and money providing services for people a long way away, there's a network of smaller, nimbler organisations who know what the problems are because they're there on the ground, and who know what the solutions are because they're learning from each other. The ideas seem small, and that makes them easier to do. Like in Oldham, where people were paying too much for their electricity and gas, so the council got together with the community and organised to buy everyone's energy in bulk from a supplier. Or in Sunderland, where people said they wanted better parks, and the council realised that by spending health money on making inner city parks better, they would drastically cut the money they needed to spend on obesity. In Lambeth, local residents knew there was a problem with the rehabilitation of offenders, and also that parks funding wasn't enough. So they worked with the council to design a scheme where offenders receive on-the-job training in parks maintenance and management, solving 2 problems at once. Youth services are being designed with young people, leaving them more empowered and better served. But the effect is in the network. When each of these smaller things is solved, everyone's life is better. And for some people, it will be significant. That means less money is spent picking up the pieces further down the road, and all that extra time and money saved can be used to make people's lives even better, only with them in control. So, how do we make the places where we live and work better? It starts here.
Okay, so that was very much designed for a general audience to introduce the idea of cooperative councils. The idea really was kicked off by the leader of Lambeth Council, Steve Reed, when he was still the leader before he was an MP a few years ago. And he saw it very much as about shifting power into the hands of citizens. So it's a bit of an attack on the sort of control freakery you get from lots of councils who are trying to do the right thing, but by their instinct they control things. And in a way, this is a network of councils who are trying to let go of power and trying to undo those control freakery habits that I'm sure you've experienced in and around statutory organisations. Our most recent chair was a young councillor called Jim McMahon, leader of Oldham. And in his area, it was very much about rebuilding trust with the people of Oldham. They felt that the relationship with the council had broken down, and that they needed to really bring people together, and their public satisfaction ratings have increased significantly under his leadership. The network is now led by the leader of Edinburgh, Andrew Burns, and we're really pleased to be a sort of UK-wide network with councils in Scotland, in Wales, in England, and we're also talking to Northern Ireland. So this is about people learning from each other and challenging each other. Ideas are coming from other parts of the political spectrum. So this is Stella Creasy, who's a young Labour MP from Waltham Forest. She's actually standing for the deputy leadership of the Labour Party, and she was at a recent launch of a project that I'll tell you a bit more about. And she very much comes from a sort of cooperative tradition and wants to look at how cooperative values can be brought to life in a modern setting, and talks a lot about how you have to start with people, you have to trust people, and you have to use the insights and energies of people themselves to try and solve the very difficult problems that we face. And I think there's potential to move into other areas of the political spectrum, because whilst Co-operative Councils has been led by a group of Labour councils, we're really, really keen to have Milton Keynes in membership, which has a more balanced political spectrum. And I think particularly now we've got a new Minister, Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, Greg Clark, who's saying very positive things about working with communities and having community-based delivery. And we actually now have a government who's been quite positive about devolving power, which is obviously important if you want to bring power down to citizens. So those are the sort of ideas that brought about the notion of cooperative councils. And I'm going to spend what time I've got just to try and spell out, well, what does that actually mean in practice? So I think the starting point with cooperative councils is about values. It's very much a kind of value-driven way of working. There was a suggestion initially that being a cooperative council meant you turned the council into a cooperative, or you put all public services into cooperatives and mutuals. And whilst that's an important part of the thinking, and in some places like Plymouth, they're actually a sort of cooperative city in the sense that they encourage cooperatives and mutuals and social enterprises. So that's important in the sense that it can shift power, but that's not necessary to be a cooperative council. And in fact, cooperative councils look at how they deliver services very much from the point of view of values. So we started with the values of the International Cooperative Alliance, and you'll see democracy is in there, equality, which we've already heard about, but also the idea of self-help, self-responsibility, sort of mutuality is really, really important. So the councils, our councils, have taken those values and developed those into values that we have as cooperative councils, and you'll see the full version of this on the website. The key ones are around social partnership, but importantly there we're talking about all sectors needing to be involved. I think often the old style of partnership was partnerships between different parts of the public sector, and what we are talking about here is getting all sectors in a room together. So the voluntary sector, the community, business, and the statutory sector. And I have to say, I should have said this at the beginning, how fantastic it is for me to be invited to speak at a forum that is led by the community and voluntary sector rather than speaking to councils, because I think the energy has to come from the bottom up and has to come from the community. This isn't something that statutory organisations can or should be doing on their own. So those are our values. I think instead of going through what those values mean specifically, what's more useful is if I talk about in practice kind of what these mean when we play them through. We just had a discussion, and because this is emerging, about if you were to create a tweet about what a cooperative council is, what would that tweet be? How do you fit it into your 140 characters? You know, I've been working with the cooperative councils for a year now, and the first question I asked was, well, what is it? You know, well, how's this different from just being a good council? What is a cooperative council? And this is our current work in progress of trying to explain what a cooperative council is. First of all, it's not about the council, it's about the place. You've said that really clearly, and that is absolutely right. A cooperative council is the council trying to work in a different way in order for the place to be more cooperative. And that place should be one where everybody does their bit and everyone benefits. So that the key thing is about reciprocity, and I'm going to explore that a little bit more, and where citizens have power over local decisions and services. So let's explore that a little bit more. Everyone does their bit and everyone benefits. The two councils that I've mentioned, Lambeth and Oldham, I guess are our sort of vanguard in terms of the councils who've most fully developed what it is to be a cooperative council and taken it into their ways of working and are struggling, you know, to make a reality of these values. And that's what this is. This isn't a simple thing. This isn't like there's a set of answers. Everybody is working it out for themselves in their area. So what might that mean? In Lambeth, where I live, there's been a lot of work around something called Fresh View, which is a sort of citizen clean-up effort, which has been led by the sort of streetscape people. And what they do is they go to an area and they get the local community to participate in a sort of collective effort to clean up an area, and they call it Fresh View. Now, that's developed over a few years, and now you've got places where they're not just cleaning it up, but they're putting in, you know, window boxes and putting flowers in on the street, and it's linked in with other things that are happening, gardening projects, guerrilla gardening, all that kind of thing. So that Fresh View, that idea that everyone does their bit and takes part in something, you don't just expect a service to be delivered for you, is crucial, and you have to make that a reality. In Lambeth, that's sort of been taken into other services, and there's a sense of the council leadership, the democratic leadership, saying to people, you know, you need to do your bit, you need to do the right thing. And that's a theme that goes through apprenticeships, you know, when you have a contract with a council, the business takes on an apprenticeship, where people are encouraged to do the right thing in being a community warden when it's snowing, in looking after old people, in volunteering. And this takes time, building up the credibility and the trust that people in the community actually think, yeah, I'm going to get involved and I'm going to put in some of my time. It's a conversation that you have to kind of keep going with. And both Oldham and Lambeth have almost begun to work as campaigners. So they kind of they think about this engagement with the community and this conversation with the community as a bit of a campaign. Oldham's very explicit about that. So these are two examples about the campaigns that they've run. The first one was mentioned in that video where Oldham Council have collectively bought energy so that people's bills are kept down. And alongside that is a lot of communication and engagement to get people to kind of sign up. Oh my goodness, I'm running out of time. Get Oldham working as an apprenticeship is about getting businesses to get involved in apprenticeships. Councils having, citizens having power, I think this is the most difficult thing to do. One example in Lambeth, they've actually set up a young people's co-op where they've handed over all of the youth service commissioning budget to a new organisation which is a cooperative and which is run by young people, and they've trained young people to be the decision makers, and they're now working through commissioning all of the youth services with those young people involved. To finish off with, I'm going to tell you about a work in progress, which is our councils are looking at how they manage their performance as cooperative councils. How do they measure the cooperative difference? How do we get away from this top-down accountability framework that drives everybody into silos? These are the key things that we think matter: democracy, the economy, the well-being of our communities, and how we work together in line with those values. We're working through what those democratic measures might be. I don't think councils have made nearly enough progress around democracy. When I look back to my time in '97 thinking about policy, a lot of focus went onto services, not much went into democracy. There was a bit about changing decision-making, but there's a lot more that we need to do to actually give people a voice and engage them. Edinburgh's been trying to consult much better, to feedback much better. They know there's a long way to go, but they're making real progress in that area. In Newcastle, they give money. They work very well in their sort of local area forums, and those have become a reality where they have get-togethers regularly. Local people shape the priorities, and they have money to spend. But there's a lot more we need to be doing there, and I think that's where our councils need to innovate. We've just done some work about the economy. For cooperative councils, enterprise, earning money is crucial to those cooperative values. And I think you have been talking a lot about things going on around skills. What I would say here is the business community being engaged is the most important thing. When you look at education, when you look at jobs, when you look at how you actually give people the ability to work in the future, it's got to be about engaging with business and having business leading on that. And our councils have set out some things they want to do differently to give people more of an opportunity and to make economies work in a sustainable way for people. And these are some of the examples of the case studies that we've sort of highlighted. The final area is around well-being. We want socially resilient communities, and I think you've already talked about that. Our next project is going to be on housing, which is the massive issue, not just in London, with really high land values, just forcing people out, making it impossible to ever own your own house. This is a community-owned development in Brixton, actually Brixton Green, where it's a mutual, which will have community ownership and proper affordable housing. But I think that's a massive challenge where cooperation needs to find a difference. And the final thing is how we work together, testing all of ourselves, the statutory sector, the voluntary sector, the business sector, the community itself, to work differently, because, you know, we all need to learn how to cooperate better. My final point, this is a journey. All I can do is share some ideas of people who are trying to do things differently. Not everything will work. Some things will work better than others. But what's fantastic about having a network of councils is they are sharing ideas from each other and finding ways, finding things that work, and finding ways to really engage people in a different way of creating a better place. So thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, that was so interesting, and as we can see there's reams more really, and we wish we had you all afternoon. I just had a question. I mean, it's very important to start this journey, and we already are, because the council have put the flag up, and we as a community are trying to really engage with this very positively. Is it more important to get into some action, some very concrete action, or is it more important to start with this shared narrative and the establishment of shared values as a grounding for this?
I think what I've learned, having been a sort of public sector person previously, and then going out and trying to engage with, you know, why can't councils work differently? I think you have to get energy going, and you have to get people engaged. But anybody, and you guys are voluntary sector people, you know that when you bring people together, they have to know what the deal is, what the rules of the game are. You know, on what basis are we having this conversation? So I think you do have to establish some shared values, but don't worry about getting it all perfect. You know, find a topic that engages people and start doing something. And it's interesting, the sort of things that engage people often are, you know, food or cycling or growing things together, you know, or sort of starting by engaging and then building the trust that then gets the ideas going. If you have the right people in the room, it's amazing what you can achieve.
That's fantastic. And I also thought, as I was listening to you, that actually we do have quite a tradition of a cooperative, in a sense, not necessarily in governance terms, but we have the Parks Trust, which owns on all our behalf as a charity our parkland. So we have a culture here that it belongs to the people, and there's a lot of activities around it. So we can start from the point of confidence, because we have something already there.
Yeah. And assets are,
and it's
are
the
crucial.
same. Yeah.
Sharing assets. If you can get people that own assets to open them up to people they wouldn't normally work with.
It's the same with the Community Foundation, which owns assets for the voluntary sector. That the idea there is that this is a group that will offer accommodation and share it and whatever. So we've got quite strong voices already in town for this. So we should have confidence.
Get the entrepreneurs in or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Abigail.
Thank you.
Nick, thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. And again, if you could spend 90 seconds to 2 minutes thinking of what more you want to tweet. We've got some to share with you in a minute. If you haven't got access to Twitter, find someone who has and who will be willing, and ask them nicely to tweet on your behalf. So take 90 seconds to 2 minutes, off you go.
And can I just encourage any positive actions you can see that we could have a sort of shopping list of where we could make a start, whether it's the food, whether it's the cycling, or whether it's some joining together to build a narrative, and then what project would be good.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just do keep tweeting as I'm speaking. There was a very interesting one which now disappeared from Anna-Clis Davis, I think, about bringing the Brixton project to some of the areas in Milton Keynes. So how can we adapt and innovate some of these existing examples in our own particular context? I think that's a very good idea there. Just a few that were picked up while the speaker was speaking. This is from @JohnMacMK. Not sure we ever get consultation right. I think the questions are always loaded and the answers ignored. So a bit of cynicism there about our processes of consultation. How can we improve those? How can we get out more to more people and make them feel that they really are being listened to? @ComActMK, bulk buying community energy could form part of a cooperative council. Nice concrete idea there around bulk buying of energy. @CarolMill77, Abigail Melville from CCIN asks, are we a cooperative borough? @MK Council is one of the councils embracing this approach. @JCO Don, Abigail Melville gets to the heart of the matter. Cooperative working is all of our responsibility. Hashtag don't point the finger. I quite like that hashtag. Hashtag don't point the finger. It's coined here. Maybe that will start trending. @ComActMK, how can we make sure a cooperative council starts with the values of the community? Engagement and a community development approach. So let's starting with those grassroots values. They're the values we want as we develop the cooperative council. And the last one I'm going to mention is @JohnMacMK again. Get rid of the politics and go flat pack. That's democracy. There we are, flat pack. Get rid of the politics, that's democracy. Nice one there. And we've got some other examples. In fact, there's very handy from Co-op Innovation, the website there for more examples of cooperation in practice. So if we go and access those websites so that we collectively understand what's going on, that's always a good idea. Can we be brave enough to let people lead rather than institutions? We need brave leadership. Are we up to it? Well, are we? Are we up to it?
And that
We've got leaders in this room.
Can I add on to the call to arms? That Abigail made a very powerful point that this needs to be a grassroots energy working with the council. The council, as we know, has enormous financial challenges, and many of these ideas in the olden days would be saying, could you get a strategic lead on this and strategic lead and call lots of meetings? Yeah. We're going to have to help call meetings and invite. I mean, it's great to see many people from the council here today. That is the important thing, that we're sharing meetings, but we're not expecting the council to take this up while we sit passively, because it's a massive issue of resource at the moment. And we're the first to call in budget meetings to say there shouldn't be too many senior officers at the council because they've got to trim as well. So what we've got to do is do things differently and take a lot of the initiative. And I think that's, again, in the tweeting, how we can think about building this sort of equal relationship and live our equality and not just speak vision.
Well, I was going to say something witty, biting, and insightful. I can't. Time is up. Francesca.
Oh, it's very good. You're very good at this, Ian. You're very good. I'm never look at you, but then I suddenly do. Right. On to a.